Hello guys, welcome to iTutor. And today's session we will start with unit 13, managing change. Okay, so we will see the objectives of this chapter. The first one is understand the concept of change management. After that, understand the nature of change, list out the type and models of change, understand the process of change, analyze the reason for the resistance of change, highlight the strategies to overcome change, understand the forms of change, identify the strategies of evaluating change, appreciate the role of a change agent, understand the concept of OD and list out the OD interventions. These are the objectives of managing change, the unit 13. And the structure is, first of all, the introduction, the concept, the key drivers, nature of change, process of change, models of change, resistance to change, strategies to overcome resistance, forms of organizational change, evaluation of change, role of change agent, organization development, that is OD, and OD intervention, that is organizational development intervention, and summary is there, self assessment questions also there. Okay, so we will start with the introduction. As the adage goes, the only constant in life is change. Okay, changes is normal in everyday life. Okay, usually three facts about change are often heard in organization, that is everywhere, that it is constantly present and the speed with which change is taking place. This being reality, almost everyone is nervous about change. People dislike change and resist change as a natural response. But in reality, change is inevitable and the cost of change would be very dear if people dislike change. There is no choice other than to welcome change and devise strategies to tackle the challenges and survive in the fast changing contemporary scenario. Okay, so change is everywhere, and what's the concept of this change? So concept of change is, the concept of organizational change refers to the change that occurs across the organization. It implies that the change brings in fundamental orientation in the way that the organization use a certain process or issues, thereby bringing in the change in the way it is carried out in business. Okay, so that is about the concept of the change. And it does not include minor change like adding a new person in the group, modifying a program, etc. Example of organizational wide change include changes in the mission, implementing new technologies, restructuring the operation, mergers and acquisition, right sizing and downsizing, and introducing new programs like TQM, re-engineering, etc. That's the concept of this management change. And the key drivers are, organization wide change is a part of business strategy to accomplish the goals of the organization. The key drivers are the technological innovation, forcing the organization to upgrade their platform, cutting down the cost to remain competitive. If the cost of one factor of production goes up, it brings about a change in the overall cost, thus forcing the organization to innovate and reduce the cost. Competition and competitive advantage has forced the organization to perform for organizational survival and growth. And competitive advantage presuppose faster decision making, thus making the organizations to change the structure, process, and style of functioning. And global culture requires organization to adapt and evolve to integrate the diversity into the business and the business operations. Okay, and the nature of change. Change can be understood better if we look at the nature of change. The nature of change is as follows: it to make or become different, give or begin to have different form, dissatisfaction with the old and belief in the new, and underlines the qualitatively different way of processing, thinking, believing to improve from the past. And next is continuous and intrinsic. It can be patterned and predictable. Dual and bipolar leads to change for the good or leaves stagnated. And rate of change is faster. This each of the element makes us understand change in its various connotation. Okay. Next is process of change. What is the process of change? Organizational experience indicate that organizations are undergoing major changes quite frequently Although smaller changes occur continually, however, there are no signs that this pace of change will slow down. The process thus assumes significance in the context. The process can be divided into three broad areas. One is preparing for the change. An organization has to address the concerns like why do we need change? What would be the difference between the current and the changed state? What is to be changed and what component will be affected and which will not be? And next is beginning the change process. Two organization must frame up the strategy being used for change, identify ways of operationalizing the change while beginning the change process. To do this, the organization must position change as a challenging target and need to identify how to minimize the impact of losses experienced by those who are most affected by the change in the organization. Next is framing up the changes into the system. During the framing of the process, the organization must ensure that all the subunits are aligned properly with the desired outcomes. All the stakeholders are fully aware of the outcome of changes and have an understanding of the process. The organization must also ensure that all those who involved will play their prescribed role in planning and implementation. Thus, an organization can approach change in a planned and systematic way, exactly identifying where it want to find itself after going through the process of change. And the next is models of change. Various models have been suggested to explain the process of change. The most important of them are: one is Kurt Levin's model. Levin specifically considered a three-stage process of managing change, taking clue from the analogy of ice. They are unfreezing, changing and refreezing. And the first stage involves creating a level of dissatisfaction with the status quo, which create conditions for change to be implemented. The second stage requires organizing and mobilizing the resources required to bring about the change. The third stage involves embedding the new way of working into the organization. This model considers that change involves a move from one static state through a state of activity to another state of status quo. Beer's model. Beer and his colleagues advocate a model that change is more complex and therefore require a more complex but still a uniform set of responses to ensure its effectiveness. The model prescribes a six-step process to achieve change. They concentrate on task alignment, whereby employees' roles, responsibilities, and relationships are seen as key to bring about situations that enforce changed way of thinking, attitude, and behavior. The stages are mobilize, commitment to change through joint diagnosis, develop a shared vision of how to organize, foster consensus and competence, and commitment to share the vision, spread the word about change, institutionalize change through formal policies, and finally monitor and adjust as required. And Shaw's model. Shaw, in his article entitled Intervening in the Shadow System of Organization, that is on 1997, argues that change is complex and evolutionary. As the change evolves, they tended to be messy because of the number and variety of changes that are introduced. Hence, the status quo is not the starting point for change management. It evolves and adapts to the environment of change. The elements, according to this model, in the change process are: first of all, understand the change drivers. What are the change levers for change strategy? Understanding the change context. Develop a picture of the organization appropriate to plan for change. Selecting the change agent or leaders for the change process. Next is Adkar model. Atkin model is ADKAR, goal-oriented change management model that allows change management team to focus their activities on specific business result. This model was initially used as a tool to determine if activities like communicating and training had the desired result during organizational change. According to this model, effective management of people dimension requires 5 key goals that form the basis of Atkin model. They are, first of all, that is awareness of the need to change, and next is desire to participate and support the change, and knowledge of how to change and what the change looks like, ability to implement the change on a day to day basis, and reinforcement to keep the change in place. And next model is Cotter's model. Cotter, in his article Leading Change, that is 1995, has introduced a number of steps in his model of change process. The steps include, first one is creating urgency. At this stage, the organization identifies threats and develops scenario to show what might happen in future. The opportunities to exploit, discuss, talk and thought process helps in eliciting external support. 75% of the effort comes from the organization in creating urgency for change. The organization, Cotter says, has to work hard in step 1 for achieving success. And next is a team or a influential people are required irrespective of hierarchy to initiate or manage change. The team must include true leader who can demonstrate emotional support and team building from across the organization. And next is create a vision for change. Why change? This question is answered because organizations consider their values as central to change. What change? Just changing the future scenario determines the strategy to implement it. And next is communicate the vision. Cotter says that organizations need to special meeting to communicate the vision, but it is done in daily activity for people to remember, assimilate and accept, leading to change. Next is remove blocks. Resistance to change is taken care of by having structures and mechanism to empower the employees to help the change move forward. Quick wins. Next is quick wins. Change interventions would lead to short term goals, not long term in nature, thus contributing to quick wins. And the next one is no room for failure. An attempt has to be made to choose project which result in runway success so as to instill confidence. And next is build on change, and next last one is add to the core. Okay, so these are Cotter's model, steps are there. Okay, you just go through the material also. Okay, and next one is McKinsey 7S model is there. And McKinsey's model focuses on 7 internal factors which are to be aligned and reinforced for change, leading to organization effective. And as a change in one element affect the other, thus requiring new organizational design. The element are value, strategy, structure, system, skill, staff and style. For instance, any change in the strategy will force the organization to make changes to the strategy and so on. And there is 5-stage model also. Ross 5-stage model is there, that is Kubler-Ross in his book Death and Dying 1969, known as change curve, underscore the need for focusing on the internal factors. It helps to understand the stages of personal and organization change. This process demonstrates the different reaction to help them to transition towards change. Thus, these different models will have implication on the way organization and their leaders view change and the way they manage change, finally impacting the effectiveness of any change initiative. Okay. So this is about today's session, and next section of unit 13 we will discuss on another videos, and also if you have any doubts you can pinpoint on comment box. Okay. So thank you.